Okay, Nesivos Shalom, Parshas Terumah. So this is, I picked a short piece. I'm trying to pick the shorter pieces where they work. So it makes it a little bit easier for us to finish it and see a whole, evolve the Rebbe's approach to one whole idea. So what he's really talking about here is on the pasuk of V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'soichem in the parsha, which is Hashem says that you should make a mikdash and I will rest within them. Besocham means within them. If Hashem was referring to the Mishkan, it should have said, V'shachanti besocho, I'll rest within it. And all the Mefarshim point this out, and we Chazal darshan that every single Jew is supposed to make a place for Hashem's presence to rest within themselves. Now somehow, because it's taught in the context of the Mishkan helps us. The Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, helps us do that. So the Rebbe has this thought over here. There's just one or two other background points. There's a concept that's brought down in a lot of the Svarim, the Kabbalah Svarim, Chassidish Svarim, that everything in the world, anything that happens, any story, any event, requires three things. There needs to be a person, the person who it's happening to. There needs to be a place where it happens, and there needs to be a time. There needs to be a time that it happens, right? So if you were to take any story that's ever been told in the history of the world, it includes those three elements. There's a who, right? There's a where, and there's a when. Now, when we talk in terms of hashkafa, so where does that all culminate? Where's the pinnacle of that? We see those three things come together in the most magnificent way. Is we have Yom Kippur or Ne'ilah, which is the greatest time of the year. The place is the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the person would be the Kohen Gadol. You have the pinnacle of the three things: the person, the place, and the time. Right?
Yeah.
Go.
I just had to interrupt you, tell you that there was nothing on the news except that the guy who shot in the church, he was a man turned woman.
Will be recorded, so I don't know if you
had on his gun Free Palestine.
Oh, nice. Okay, we were discussing downstairs a few minutes ago that two hostages were freed in a place where the whole world is talking about all the time, and none of the regular news agencies picked it up, and we were offering theories for that. Anyway, okay, so in the concept of a person, place, and time, that's what the Rebbe is going to talk to us about. What this mikdash is, and how this relates to us. To us, not just we don't have a Beis Hamikdash today, unfortunately. It should be speedily rebuilt in our days. But how do we relate to this? He says, "Hine inyan Beis Hamikdash haya bebechinas hakusta dechiyusa v'neshama shekol habriya." That the Beis Hamikdash was the point of life and the soul of creation. It was the soul of all of the world, right? We know that that's the center point. We know that the world is round, so there is no real center point, but that the Beis Hamikdash is the center point, the focus of all of creation. Shebetoich habriya, betoich olam hatayvas hashiflim v'yerudim. Now, when we think of this world is a place of base urges. It's a place of low things. It's a place of downfalls, of things that are low. It's not the prettiest picture. You look at the news, it's not always the prettiest picture. So what Hashem did was to counterbalance that. Hashem brought down a light from on high, from the higher worlds, to lift up all of Klal Yisrael. And the Beis Hamikdash also extends to the whole world. We know that the Beis Hamikdash was brought bracha to not only to Jews. It wasn't limited only to Jews. Avodas Beis Hamikdash v'chol klei Hamikdash. So the avodah that happened in the Beis Hamikdash, right? The service, the work that was done there, the karbanos that were brought there, and all of the utensils of the Mikdash. Ichnisu tahara v'or b'Klal Yisrael. It instills, it embeds purity and light in all of Klal Yisrael, liten lehem kayach lahachzik ma'amad, to give them the strength to stand strong against all of the negative influences of the world. In the midst of all of the darkness in this world. And by doing that, okay, he'll explain how, but by doing that, niskayim va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'soichem. Doing that, we can fulfill this pasuk of create a mikdash, and I will rest within you. I will reside within you. Within each and every Jew. Shebeis hamikdash Haya mitar kol Yehudi. The Beis Hamikdash would purify every Jew, so that there could be a place for the Shekhinah to rest within there. And we see it even just on a very superficial level. When a person, the times of the Beis Hamikdash, when a person sinned, they would bring a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash, and they would achieve atonement by doing that. That would be part of the tshuva process. They would go to the Beis Hamikdash. So he says, the Rabbi goes on. He says, I've talked about this earlier. He says this idea that light comes down to give us strength to endure this dark world. So when we refer to this, when we refer to what I was talking about before, place, time, and soul, it's in the language of Chazal, in the language of the Svarim HaKadoshim, it is Olam, which is the place in the world. Nefesh, Shana is the time of the year, and Nefesh is the soul. So he says, Makam HaMikdash ba'olam shemisham yatsa oira l'chol klal Yisrael. So when it comes to place, the place that this light comes through to us is the Beis Hamikdash. That's the place where Hashem brings this light to the world. Right? We even know that the menorah, the window by the menorah was backwards. The way, if you wanted to set the light of the menorah out to the world, the window should have been shaped the other way. But the idea is that this was the concentration of light, and from there it would illuminate the whole world. And what in time? What do we have this in time? Where do we have this light that comes into our lives in time? The Shabbos Kodesh B'Shana. You have Shabbos. Shabbos is that light. Is that light that comes into time? Right? We discussed a little bit last week the idea that Shabbos is that recognition of Hashem. Whatever I'm doing, I stop. Shabbos is the time that I stop whatever it is I'm doing, and I recognize that it's just me and Hashem. I'm not cooking, I'm not cleaning, I'm not doing anything else that I normally do during the other days of the week. Shabbos and Kodesh L'Hashem. It's Kodesh. That's the holiness of Hashem. Shehi machnisa kedusha b'nishmos Yisrael. It instills kedusha, holiness, into the souls of the Jewish people. B'chol matzav shafel sheyudi nimtza. No matter what kind of a low place a Jew finds himself in. K'maimer Chazal. This is the famous Gemara Shabbos Daf Kuf Yud Ches that's it's quoted all the time, and many explanations have been given for it. But Kol HaShomer Shabbos Kilchasa, whoever keeps Shabbos, Afilu Oived Avodah Zarah, even if he served Avodah Zarah Kedar Enosh, the Dar of Enosh was shortly before Noach. They were very, very bad idol worshippers, and even if a person served Avodah Zarah like that generation, he's forgiven. And everybody asks on this Gemara, how is that possible? A guy can spend his whole life serving Avodah Zarah, and yet he keeps Shabbos properly, because one of the explanations given, and that's part of what he's saying here, is to truly keep Shabbos, to truly recognize Shabbos, is the opposite of Avodah Zarah. You're showing that you don't really believe in the Avodah Zarah. You're showing that that's not how you want to live, because Shabbos, right? If you didn't believe in Hashem, Shabbos makes no sense. I got something going on in the office, but now it's 4:15 on a Friday afternoon in December, and I shut off my phone. My whole business could blow up over the next 25 hours, and I'm not doing anything about it. Right? It doesn't make sense. Only because I believe in Hashem that I'll accept it. Hashabbos Kodesh, he is damnus Yehudi. This is the invitation. It's the opportunity for every Jew to return to his place. Right? Shabbos is a reset button. We all know that, even if we don't experience Shabbos the proper way, but Shabbos is a reset button. It's a way to collect our thoughts. It's a way to stop, get off the treadmill for a day. Mitoich sihas shiflus, in the pinnacle of this lowliness. Shabbos is sort of that raft, that life raft that we can grab onto. Uva nefesh koyach haTorah, and what's in the nefesh, in the person, right? So we said place is the Beis Hamikdash, time is Shabbos. In the person, it's Torah. Learning Torah, connecting the Torah. Shakadosh Baruch Hu noisin haTorah, nasan liyehudi es koyach haTorah. Hashem, who is the giver of the Torah, he gives to a Jew the power of Torah, that through it, niya Yehudi davik b'Hashem Yisbarach. That's our way to connect to Hashem. Our way of connecting to Hashem, our way of hearing from Hashem, our way of speaking to Hashem is through Torah. Avshu nimtza b'toich chomer v'yitzarim afelim. Even if he finds himself in materialism and very dark inclinations, but Torah is a way for him to connect to that. Kamaymer Chazal, the Gemara in Kedushin tells us, Barasi Yetzahara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. I created the Yetzahara. The Yetzahara is the power in the world that is trying to get us to do the wrong thing. And the Gemara says, and what's the antidote? Torah. the more a person connects to Torah in a deep way, the more he's able to withstand and fight the Yetzer Hara. The power of Torah purifies and cleanses the souls of the Jewish people. And what's the principle here? And this is a general rule that Chazal tell us, that Hashem doesn't challenge us in ways that we are not capable of overcoming. They may be very difficult challenges sometimes, which means that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into a world that has all of these challenges, difficult to stay from, difficult to keep Shabbos, all these difficult things in this world, He must have given us some tools with which to navigate it. If we were thrown into the world of free will, of the world of choice, a world filled with challenges and illicit desires, base urges. So Hashem had to give us these three powers that a Jew can draw from, that a person can draw from to be able to fight these things. You can't send somebody into battle and not give him a weapon. It's not going to work. What's he supposed to do? So Hashem gave us these things that we can draw from. It says that in all of these, you see that all of these are structured based on threes. You have, in each of these things, and he's going to explain now, you have a lower level, a better level, and then you have an elevated level. And we'll see what that is. Al derech kaimas adams. He says, in the simplest way, you have the build of a person. And we're not talking about the physical build, going feet up to the head. We're talking about sheyesh ba tachtiyim shneim ushlishim. You have these three different levels, which are, and this comes up also repeatedly in Sifrei Kodesh and Chassidus, that have hevarim madur hataiva. Right, we have the limbs, which is the seat of taiva, meaning they're the ones that carry out. When a person wants to do something wrong, you need arms, legs, you need a mouth, you need ears. Whatever we do, any avera that we do, has to come through the external limbs of the person's body. But we understand that they're not the ones making the choice, right? It's not, your hand may hit somebody, which you're not supposed to do, it's an avera. The hand didn't decide to go out and hit somebody. It's carrying through, which, what? Halev v'hamayach. The heart and the mind. The heart and the mind is where, that's always what Chazal talk about, the heart and the mind. The mind is the seat of rational decisions, and the heart is the seat of emotional decisions, even if biologically that's not really correct. Everything's really in the brain, but that's the imagery that's used. That the brain is what tells us. I know this is right. Let's think. I used this example, I think last week also, about a diet, right? So a person knows, doctor tells him he's got to be on a diet. Your cholesterol's too high or whatever. I know you don't like diet examples, but diet examples are very safe. Right? We don't want to pick it so everybody could relate to it on some level, and it works. The muscle works. So the doctors tell him you got to cut out whatever the foods that you need to cut out. So he decides, no problem. I'm gonna go on a strict diet. I'm gonna be good. Right? So that's a decision he makes in his brain. He knows. He takes in the information. He knows that this is bad for me. That piece of cake, I should not eat that piece of cake. So he makes a rational decision. Right? Then what happens is the heart has some different ideas. The heart says, yeah, but I really like chocolate cake, and I really want to eat that piece of chocolate cake. Right? So now there's a little bit of a battle between the heart and the mind. And ultimately the hand and the mouth are the ones who commit the sin. Right? The hand reaches out for the cake, and the mouth takes the bite. Right? But the hand and the mouth are not making that decision. That decision is made in the heart and the mind. So you have the three levels. So now, ideally, if we could live that way, we're not created that way, but if we could live that way, we always follow exactly the rational decision in every single situation. We would avoid a lot of problems. Life would probably also be somewhat boring, but we would avoid all the things that are bad for us. Whether it's physically or spiritually, we'd always make the right decisions. We'd think it through. We'd have pros and cons lists, and we'd make a rational decision. But that's not how we do it, right? The other parts get involved as well. So, but when you think about the structure of a person, so the external limbs that actually commit the sin, the hand and the mouth, Those are the lowest because they're not really part of the decision-making process. Then you have the heart, which is much more sophisticated and it's on a higher level. And then you have the mind, which is really sophisticated and which is making the more rational decisions. That if a person wants to lift himself up, you need to get all three involved, right? The other example you could use, let's say even where the Evarm, when a person is lazy, he could be lying in bed, and he could be saying, I know I should get up. And my heart even wants to get up. I want to go do this thing, right? You could have a fun day planned. And your mind says it's time to get out of bed. And your heart says, I want to go have a good time. And the rest of the body says, nothing doing. I'm not getting out of bed today, right? So it does play a role. But clearly, the higher you go, the bigger the role that gets played. So he says, so that's in a human being. You have these three levels. Where are the three levels in the Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash, Hazara v'Hechal. You have the courtyard. If you know the structure of the Beis HaMikdash, I'm sure everybody's seen the pictures or some of the models. You have the Azara, where there was a lot of things that were happening. That's the big courtyard. The big courtyard around the Beis HaMikdash. Then you have the actual structure of the Beis HaMikdash, which was split. The larger room was the Heichal, right? That's where you had the menorah and the shulchan and the small mizbeach. And then you have the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which only has the Aron, which only the Kohen Gadol would go into on Yom Kippur. That's the highest, right? So v'achal Kodesh HaKadoshim, shebay hayu Aron ve'edus. That was where the Aron and the edus was. V'akruvim, shebezman Yisrael oisim ritzon shemakom ha'akruvim Aron zebezeh. The kruvim, the Gemara in Yuma tells us, the Gemara in Yuma Nundalid tells us that when the Jewish people, when Hashem was happy with the Jewish people, when things were going well, so the kruvim were hugging each other. And when we weren't doing so well with Hashem, they would face away from each other. Except right before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, they were hugging each other fine. But that's a different topic. But the idea there is, you see that in this most intimate of place, we know that the Chazal even tell us that the Kodesh HaKadoshim, none of the measurements added up. The Aron was bigger than the Kodesh HaKadoshim, yet somehow fit inside, because at that place, which is the ultimate place, like the rules don't apply. That's where Hashem chose to show us that He loves us, with the kruvim embracing each other. Okay, so that's the three levels by the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, that's that shows how much Hashem loves the Jewish people. But Shabbos Kodesh, and on Shabbos you also have three phases of Shabbos. But Shabbos Kodesh, Leil Shabbos Kodesh, you have Friday night. V'Yom HaShabbos, you have Shabbos day. And you have Achach Shal Shudas. Now, in America, Shal Shudas sort of got the short shrift in most communities. But Shal Shudas, especially by the Chassidim, it's Rava de Rav, and it's considered the highest moment of the week. Shal Shudas, those last few minutes of Shabbos, is the highest minutes of the week. It's a time of tremendous Eis Ratzon. It's a time of goodwill from Hashem towards us. Bechinas Kodesh Kadashim. Sha'azu kiyadua hayichud hagamor shal kudsha brich v'Yisrael. That represents the unity. That's the embrace of Hashem and the Jewish people, right? So you have this happening in the brain. You have this happening in the Kodesh HaKadoshim by the Kruvim, and you have this happening Shal Shudas, and B'chein B'choyach HaTorah. We have this by Torah also. HaMakadesh is Nafsheh Shel Yehudi. Now, there's a lot of threes in Torah that he could have chosen, but he likes to talk from Derech Avodah. What can I do? How do I improve myself? So that's what he's referring to here. He says, again, Yesh Tachtiyim, there's lower levels, Shniyim, second, and Shlishim. Reishis Havodah Hisur Merah. Okay. And I pointed out, I was learning with Adam on Shabbos about this, that in many, many places, the Nesivos Shalom is known to say that nowadays we have to say, the Sur Merah is too hard, we have to start with the Asay Tov. You have to start with doing it. But in building the structure of a person's avodas Hashem, the proper way to go about it, he says that because it's just not always doable. To wait until I stop doing anything wrong before I start doing good is not practical. But in derech avodah, the right way for a person to build himself is first stop doing anything wrong, stop doing any averis, stop doing negative things. Shekash Yehudi nichnas al kedusha alav reishis kol lo samera is to stop doing bad things, stop the bad acts. Right? To uproot that, to play on a pasuk, right? That uproot the rotted out parts that are inside of him. Olav nemer kiyetza lev adam raminurav. Hashem says, "I created man evil from his youth." And then we should do good. Until we go to this even a higher level. So you have the level 3 is stop doing the bad things. Level 2 is do good things. Do good things. And then what's the higher level? Right? You could have a person who does good things, but he's not necessarily a goy kaddish, somebody who's who exudes holiness is fully holy. I avoid doing the wrong things. I do the right things, but I'm not necessarily a person who lives for this, and I'm completely holy. Dargas kodesh kedashim. This level of kodesh kedashim as kol asiyosav hagashmias who oisa rak l'shem shemaim. So how do you define this? This is somebody who everything he does is l'shem shemaim, which again we spoke about a little bit last week. That everything he does is driven by, will this make Hashem happy or will this not make Hashem happy? He doesn't care about his own desires or wants at all. They don't come into the equation. That's a person who's on the highest level. He's not just avoiding bad and doing good. He's living for what will make Hashem happy at every given moment. In all of your ways, you should know Hashem. So he says now, what's the parsha called? The parsha is called Terumah. The beginning of the parsha says, "V'yikhu li Terumah." You should take for me a Terumah. And again, all of the Mefarshim ask. It should say, "V'yitnu li Terumah." You should give me a Terumah. V'yikhu. You don't. If I ask you to give me something, I don't say take for me. I say give to me. Right. So Hashem is asking the Jewish people to give. What's v'yikhu li? So there's again many pshatim. It's very very much discussed. But he says here, it says every person, every man. Every person, ashayidvenu liboy, that his heart is generous, his heart is inspired to give. You should take a truma. Tikhu es trumasi, you should take my truma. Merumas al bechina naisefes. This is a reference to a higher level than the structure that he even just said to us. Why? Al pi ma'im habal shem tov hakadosh hu. So what's bothering the Rebbe now, the Nesivos Shalom, what he wants to explain now is very nice. That, okay, you told me I have Beis HaMikdash, you told me I have Shabbos, you told me I have Torah. But what do I do living now in 2024? We don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so that one's out. I can't get the light, right? We said that the light comes down through these three things that are built on threes, and that's how I fight the world of darkness. But we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Shabbos, I don't know, does my Shabbos really look like it's supposed to look? Do I know how to relate to Shabbos the way it should, and it would bring light into my life? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but most of us would admit that most of our Shabbosim don't live up to that level. And Torah, do we learn Torah the way we're supposed to learn Torah? That we go through this Surmirah, Asay Tov, and come to this level of serving Hashem. So what are we supposed to do? Okay, let's say we're incapable or it's just too monumentous for us to take this on. How are we supposed to fight the world of darkness? Hashem gave us these three tools, and they're there for us, but we're not using them. So what do we do? So he says there's a famous idea from the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. So the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh used to say, I'll just say it outside and then we'll read the words, but the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh used to say that when a person, you ever have, everybody's had this, I'm not going to ask for examples, I'll just use an example. But you have a person, let's say, who he by nature, he has, let's say, a very bad temper, right? And he has a friend who nothing bothers the guy. Everything rolls off of him. He doesn't get upset. And now this guy with the temper, he's trying, he's working on himself. He's reading all the books about temper. He goes to a therapist. He's working on himself. He's learning. He's davening. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. But the bottom line is his nature, and he fights with this nature all the time. And when he sees his friend and something happens with his friend that would send him through the roof, he's so jealous of his friend. How are you just sitting there and it just doesn't bother you? It just rolls right off of you. And by the way, this is true for every midah, different people. So he says, the person by nature says this, it's not fair. It's not fair. I have such a challenge in this area. And my buddy was born like this from day one. He never loses it. Or it could be, pick any other thing that a person deals with, right? So for one person, it could be kas, and he's jealous of the guy who's very calm. Meantime, that calm guy is sitting there saying, my friend, true, he has a big temper, but every time we show up to davening, he's so excited to daven. And I'm dispassionate about my temper, and I'm dispassionate about davening and learning, right? I'm so jealous. I wish I had his excitement, and I would put up with the temper to have that excitement, right? From any human being on the planet's perspective, there are some things that come to you a little bit more easily. Now, I'm not saying anything is easy, but there are certain things, there are certain midos that come to each person a little bit more easily. And there are certain ones that are our challenges. And the same is true with certain averas and certain things. There are some things that I may find to be so challenging, and to you they're not a challenge. But then there will be other averas that for you are a challenge and for me are not a challenge, right? That's human nature. We're very complex individuals. Everybody has their areas of challenge. Says the Baal Shem Tov about those areas of challenge. Don't think that those challenges are something that I wish I could wish away. He says, you were put here because of those things. If you're the guy who has the terrible temper and you decide every year, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that, you know what, this year I'm going to work on not being jealous. So your friend overhears this and he goes, yeah, but you're never jealous. Jealousy is not your challenge. Your challenge is your temper. He's like, yeah, I know, but I'm going to work on jealousy. So that's not your purpose in this world. You weren't put here to work on jealousy. The proof of that is, it's not a challenge for you. You were put here for where it's hardest, for the things you love most, the things that are hardest for you to give up. Those are the things we were put here for. Which I believe it's from the Eish Kodesh, he talks about this, that like, we always seem to think like, you know, I davened well today, despite the fact that I was lazy and didn't want to get out of bed. No, the real answer is, because I was lazy and didn't want to get out of bed, that's why my davening was so good today. Because I overcame that, because I fought that, that's why my davening was so meaningful. Otherwise, it's not. So he says, the Baal Shem Tov used to say that you want to know what you can give Hashem, the thing that's hardest for you to give. That's the thing that we're not talking about material, you know, writing a check. We're talking about the part of you that's hardest to work on, the part of the Avera that's hardest for you to give up. That's the thing that you can give to Hashem. So now let's read the words of the Baal Shem Tov. This that a person wants to give something from his heart. The thing that's hardest for you to give up. The thing that you feel like it's who you are. This Avera, this is who I am. I can't give this up. The very purpose that a person comes down into this world, is to correct his neshama. We all know that. We all know that we're here to work on ourselves. Right? We're here to work on our neshamas. Everybody has their own unique, and by the way, unique, we're using very simple examples. By every single person, it's obviously much more complex. It's a few percent temper, it's a few percent jealousy. It's not just one, but we know those things that trigger us. Those are the areas. Those are the areas that we have to work on. He has to fix those. And that's where the Yetzer Hara fights him so hard. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara's job, I came down here to fix X, whatever my X. The Yetzer Hara, he'll let me work on everything else. The rest of the alphabet, the Yetzer Hara says, yeah, that's why I don't have the challenge in it. Because he doesn't care if I do those things. That's not what I'm here for. His job is to prevent me from doing what I'm here for. Right? So if I came down, we'll use the simple examples again. If I came down to fix Kas, the Yetzer Hara says to me, yeah, you should go to Shiurim on jealousy, you should go to Shiurim on kavod, you should go, all the other Shiurim, he comes very frum. Let's go to Shir, I'll go with you. Anything but don't work on Kas, right? Because he knows that's why it's the hardest for you, because that's what you're here for, and that's what he's trying to prevent you from doing. Therefore Hashem says, take the Terumah, you're taking it from inside of yourself, the Terumah, the thing that's hardest for you, that your heart wants so much, that give to Hashem Yisbarach. I'm going to work on the thing that's hardest for me to work on. That's the thing I'm going to work on. Right? And based on this, that's what it means. The first pasuk we started with was what does it mean to make a migdash for Hashem in your heart? In that area where you can build. In the things that are not challenging for you, you can't build a migdash for Hashem. You don't have the ability to build a migdash in those things. That even in the darkest times, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, and we're not experiencing Shabbos the way we should, and we're not learning Torah the way we should. But we're not lost. We still have this is like the the ace up the sleeve. Sorry to borrow a poker metaphor, but right, this is the ace. When nothing else is working, of course we should work on Shabbos, and we probably all do have Shabbosim that give us that light. And there are times that we learn and we do have that light. And there are times, maybe on a Tisha B'Av, that I cry over the Beis HaMikdash and I connect to that light, even though it hasn't been here for 2,000 years. But it's not. I can't always tap into that. This I can always tap into. Because anytime, anywhere you are, you tell Hashem, I'm going to work, I'm going to double down my efforts on this, in this area. And we know if we sit down and we're honest, it doesn't take a lot of time. People, you're aware, it may not just be one thing, but we know where, it's costing, right? Sometimes it's just easy to write a check, right? But if the guy's really asking you to get out of bed in the middle of the night to pick him up from the airport, and you're like, I just want to send an Uber, which sometimes is okay. I'm not saying you have to get out of bed every time somebody calls, but there's a time where your friend is having a really bad time, and they just flew in, and their flight was delayed, and what he needs is not the ride. He needs to see that somebody cared about him and showed up to the airport. I'm just using, again, silly examples, but the thing that's hard, even though what's the difference? I paid for his Uber, so he got here faster because he would have had to wait for me to get to the airport, right? We make all these cheshbonos, right? But you know deep down that that's not the point. The point is he needed to see Rabbi Zakutinsky waiting at Kennedy when he came back after learning for a couple of years in Israel, and he was terrified. I know there's the campaign going on, so I'm doing a little plug. This was our first video. This was the whole, right?
We just said that.
That one, yeah. So that kid, it's not how he's going to get home from the airport. It's that there's somebody who cared about me to show up at the airport, right? But that's sometimes much harder. It's much harder than to just put it on my Uber account, right? And that's why it says, so shall you do for generations. They only built the Mishkan once or twice, Beis HaMikdash, 4 times. What does it mean, L'Doros? You're going to make it, you're going to Kain Yasu L'Doros. You're going to constantly do this. Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan. The next generation didn't have to build a Mishkan. So what does it mean you're going to do for Doiris? The Doiris HaChashuchim, it's talking about our generation, the dark generations. Be'ez si HaCheshkus, that the pinnacle of darkness, Yesh Derech Shal Asher Yidvenu Libo. We always have this opportunity of doing Asher Yidvenu Libo. Sheyarim Truma LaHashem, that we can give a Truma to Hashem, is Hadover Shaliba Mis'aval of B'yoysa. The thing that now for some people it is a check, by the way. There's some people who cannot part with their money. It doesn't matter percentages, doesn't matter how much they make, it doesn't matter how much you're asking for. There's some people have a very hard time parting with their money. So for that person, maybe it is writing a check, right? But each person has to be true to himself. That's how you make a Mishkan and a Migdash. Right? That's what he referred to the base of Migdash. This point, the nucleus of creation. And then a person could renew. A person could renew himself. Right? One of the things, we're not in those parshas now, but one of the things that always disturbs us is when it says that Rivka loved Yaakov and Yitzchak loved Esav. Yitzchak was a bright man. Yitzchak was a very, very bright man. Right? He would have scored off the charts on any IQ test that they could have come up with for him. He was a very bright man. So Esav fooled him, right? We know all the chazals. Esav tricked him. He was asking him shilas about salt. There's got to be more to it. Yitzchak was not Yitzchak. You didn't trick Yitzchak, right? Yitzchak. We don't hear that Yitzchak was a victim to Ponzi schemes, right? Yitzchak, he was a smart man. So what does it mean that he loved Esav more than Yaakov? So it says the Rabbi, Esav who see his gabrus hatayvas haros misitra d'smoila. You know what Yitzchak saw? Yitzchak saw this Esav has tremendous Yetzaharas. Yaakov didn't have the same Yetzaharas as Esav. Esav had every Yetzahar in the world to an extreme level. Esav was a man filled with Yetzaharas. Says Yitzchak, if this guy has such big Yetzaharas, imagine the potential for Kedusha that he has. He could be the greatest person to ever live. If he has that strong of a Yetzahara, imagine what the side of good could be in him. If he would elevate this to Hashem Yisbarach, he would even be greater than Yaakov. And we can never say such a thing, but Chazal say it. It's not, even the Nesivos Shalom didn't make this up. Chazal say this. V'savar Yitzchak shavadasai hi lahalois asiha rasha by Lashem Yisbarach. Yitzchak saw that this was his purpose. To take this, my son, who has so much potential, could be the greatest tzaddik that ever lived. I have to cultivate that. Okay, Esav wasn't interested, but Yitzchak was ready to guide Esav to that, and it was possible. Esav could have had that option to do that. He would be on the highest level. Says the Rabbi, this is why a Jew comes down to Olam Hazeh. To make this base of Mikdash. Just a few more lines. In opposition, by contrast to all of the evil that we feel like we have in us and all the rotted roots that we have inside of us, we could do this for generations. We could elevate all of those negative things that we have inside of us that make us crazy. We can elevate those to Hashem. We said before, Hashem does not give us a challenge that we're not capable. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but He does not test us in a way that we're not capable of overcoming. If He gave us certain negative inclinations, So He also gave us the tools and the abilities to bring it all the way up to Hashem. That we can illuminate the world through that. That's why it says, we know the famous Vart, we say in Shema 3 times, twice a day in davening, once a day before we go to sleep. We have to love Hashem with all your hearts. What do you mean hearts? Everybody only has one heart. I know tomorrow's Valentine's Day, I think, right? So is it tomorrow? Is it next Tuesday? Oh, Wednesday. Okay. I hope my wife buys me something nice. B'shnei yitzirecha, with both of your yetzes. What do you mean two hearts? It means with both of your yetzes. What yetzes? We have two yetzes. We have yetzer tov, yetzer hara. We have an evil inclination and a good inclination. Now, we know how we can serve Hashem with our good inclination, right? That's the voice that's telling us, get out of bed, go to daven. Get out of bed, go to shir, right? That's that voice. But how do we do it with the Yetzer Hara? So he says, Inyan v'yahavta b'Yetzer Hara. What does it mean to love Hashem with the Yetzer Hara? Hu she'eskol koiches hara hanimtzam b'kirba yal Hashem. Elevating all these things to Hashem. She'oz si hara gufay mishapech liyas hamakam hamakudesh b'yoysa. That place, the very place inside of you that the worst taivas that you had lived has the potential to become, that's the exact spot that Hashem wants to rest. That's where He wants to rest. That's where He wants to make His Mikdash. Makam lashras hashchina. That's where He wants to put the Shechina. U'miskayim bay v'asli Mikdash shchanti b'soichem b'soichel echad v'echad. Hashem wants to be in every one of us. U'chamoyshe b'Shabbos kodesh nemar afilu oived avodah zarah kedar enosh moichelai. And we said about Shabbos that even if somebody served avodah zarah like the dar of enosh, if he keeps Shabbos kehilchasa, the slate is wiped clean. He can go back to his original place as if all that avodah zarah never happened. By working on the area that you find most challenging, that's also a way to do this. Even being at the pinnacle of degradation. Within the great, and this is a line that everybody should have over their computer, that Hashem has put tremendous strength in every single Jew. He doesn't say like Roiv Yehudim. He doesn't. Every single Jew has untapped, amazing power to create a place for Hashem to dwell, and that's where Hashem wants to dwell. We should be zocher that every single person is able to find that place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to work on it and to let Hashem into him, that he can build a Mikdash, and with that we'll bring about Meretz Hashem, the building of the Beis HaMikdash, the physical Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. We can all go up there and together. You're already on your way, taking your first steps, but we should all join you in Meretz Hashem.